We continue now at the top of Daf Kofayin Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 170b. On the previous summer, there was a case where Rabbi Abba owed money, and Rabbi Abba claimed that he paid back the debt in front of witnesses. And Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha ruled that if you're claiming you paid back in front of witnesses, you need to bring those witnesses to the court, even though in general you did not need to pay back in front of witnesses. But once you're making that claim, we hold of levarer, and the idea of levarer is you have to corroborate the claims that you're making, even if they were extra, even if they were claims that you did not need to make. And Rabbi Abba is in the middle of arguing back, and he says, number one, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel says there is no concept of levarer, and even Rebbe, Amar el levarer, all he said was that you have to corroborate. In other words, he just said that in general you don't need to bring the witnesses, but if you say you make such a claim, then he says you should bring the witnesses. That doesn't really make sense. Why should my extra claim obligate me to bring these witnesses? We should really follow Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel that that is not necessary. And the Gemara continues, Amar le, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha said back to him, Anon nami levarer koamina. I also was just saying levarer, and the Rashbam explains, Amar le, Anon nami levarer koamina kilomar. What this means to say is as follows, ki Rebbe svirali. The way the Rashbam understands is that Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha was saying, I hold like Rebbe. There's a machlokes Rebbe and Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, and you are correct that Rebbe is simply saying that since an extra claim was made, that needs to be corroborated, but that's what I hold, that therefore you need to bring these witnesses. And again, just to review, the reason why we were bringing all of this was to explain a machlokas tanoim we were discussing on the previous Amud. Again, the machlokas tanoim was between Rebbe and Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. If you have a situation where a person says that a piece of property is his and he has a shtar and also a chazaka, so according to Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, he brings the chazaka. According to Rebbe, he brings the shtar. And the way the Gemara is currently explaining that machlokas, Rav Shimon ben Gamliel says, even though he says he has a shtar, that's an extra claim he did not need to make, because the cheskas gimel shanim was sufficient, but he doesn't actually need to produce that shtar, because that's not necessary. We don't hold of levarer. And Rebbe holds no, the person needs to bring the shtar. He made that extra claim and said that he has a shtar, and therefore he does need to produce it. That's the idea again of levarer, according to Rebbe, and that's why we brought this whole incident with Rabbi Abba and Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Misha para mixas chovo. If somebody paid part of his debt, and the issue over here is now the malva has a document which says he owes him the entire debt, but really part of it was paid. So what should we do in such a situation? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Yachlif, Rabbi Yehuda says you have to exchange, meaning you have to return that original document the malva had, has to be given to the lova, and you have to draw up a new document with the new amount of the debt. Rabbi Yossi Omer, Rabbi Yossi says, Yichtov Shover, that's not true. He can keep his original document, and there should be a shover written, a receipt written for the lova, for the borrower, and he has to protect that receipt to prove that he's paid part of that debt until he finally finishes and pays up the entire thing. And the Mishnah continues, Amar Rabbi Yehuda says to Rabbi Yossi, Nim says that Sarach Lios Shomer, Shover Mino Achbarim, according to you, this person has to protect this shover, this receipt from the mice. He's always going to have to hold on to it, otherwise he's going to have to pay back the whole thing. Amar Lo Rabbi Yossi said to him, Kach Yafalo, that's fitting. It makes sense to say that he has to protect the shover. Velo Yera Kocho Shel Zeh. We shouldn't weaken the position of the malva. We shouldn't make him have to write up a new document. He should be able to keep his original document, and this person will have to watch over his shover. And the Gemara says, Amar Rav Huna Marav. Rav Huna says that Rav says, Ein halacha lo Rabbi Yehuda velo Rabbi Yossi. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda, and it's not like Rabbi Yossi. Ella, rather, the halacha is Bezdin Mekaran Hashtar. The court tears up the original shtar. V'chosvin lo shtar achar mizman rishon, and they write for him a new shtar from that original date. And the Rashbam explains, Ein halacha lo Rabbi Yehuda. The halacha is not like Rabbi Yehuda shamar yachlef, that you exchange the shtar for a new shtar. V'afilu lichtov lo mizman rishon al yedei edim, even to write it from the original date through witnesses below bezdin without a court. In other words, Rabbi Yehuda said that without a court you exchange and you write another document. That's not the halacha. Kedim mefarish v'yazal, as the Gemara will now explain, to lo alimi edim lekroa shtar ulahachlef v'ligvos mizman rishon. The point is that edim, witnesses alone, are not strong enough to tear up a shtar and write a new shtar from the original date. V'lo Rabbi Yossi, and the halacha is also not like Rabbi Yossi Damar Kosvin Shover, who says that we write a receipt v'tzorach lishmor shovro min achbarim, and that the borrower needs to watch over to protect his shover from the mice. Rather, what happens is, again, the bezdin is the one that tears up the shtar, and they write a new shtar from the original date. And the Rashbam continues and explains, v'chosvin lo shtar acher. Again, Rav says that the bezdin writes a new shtar lefi skom hamos shechayv lo adayin, according to the amount of money, the new amount amount of money that is owed. The Rav Tanahu Polygon. The Rashbam notes that Rav over here is a Tana. He has the status of a Tana, and therefore he's able to argue with Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Yossi in the Mishnah. And so therefore, again, Rabbi Yehuda says the witnesses have the ability to tear up a star and write a new one from the original date. That is not true. The witnesses don't have such power. Rather, that power lies with the Bezdin, according to Rav. And the Gemara continues, Amar le Rav Nachman le Rav Huna. Rav Nachman said to Rav Huna, V'amri lo, some have the version, Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba le Rav Huna, that it's Rabbi Yirmiyah bar Abba that said to Rav Huna, Ishmiya le Rav ha Braisa. If Rav had heard the following Braisa, the Tanya, that it says in the Braisa, Edim, Mekarenes Ashtar, that the witnesses are the one that tie up, that tear up the document, V'chosven lo shtar achar mizman rishon, and they write a new star from the original date. If he had heard that Braisa, have a hader be, he would have retracted what he said. Amar le said back to him, Shmiya le, he did hear that Braisa, v'lo hader be, and in fact he did not retract. And the Rashbam explains, Shmiya le l'Rav hadatanya l'kaman b'shmaitin. This is a Braisa later on. B'mil said Rabbi Yehuda, it's with the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. B'poreach chatzi chovo shemekaran edim. A person paid up half his debt, and again the witnesses are the one that tear the original document. Have a hader be Rav. Had he heard that, Rav would have retracted. V'haya moda shalachik Rabbi Yehuda. He would have admitted that the halach is like Rabbi Yehuda. To Rav nami hachi kamer, because Rav also, he would say the same thing. Demali bezdin mali edim. What's the difference if it's the bezdin that tears it or the witnesses that tear it? And the response was, no, Shama, he did hear it, v'lo hader be, and he did not retract. The Braisa tani edim mekaran, the Braisa does say that the witnesses tear it. V'iyu amar, but he says, bezdin dafka v'lo edim, that it's only the court that can do that, and not the witnesses, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Ayin Aleph Amid Aleph.